is up, everybody? It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. This is the Blue Root Pod. First things first, the Blue Root Pod can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Please be sure to check us out and give us a 5-star rating. Truly helps us grow our brand and give you the best show possible. The Blue Root Pod can be also now found on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. All right, let's do this. Another huge welcome to Tyson Quibell. If you don't already, please be sure to check him out and follow him on Twitter at Quibell Tyson. If you're a hockey diehard, then be sure to check out his regular season preview, which came out a couple nights ago. You can find all of that and the rest of Tyson's work on hockey and the Flyers at thepaintedlines.com. How you doing, Tyson?
I'm good. How are you?
Tyson is our resident Flyers analyst here at the Painted Lines. The puck drops on the Flyers regular season tomorrow afternoon. This is part 3 of Tyson's top 30 prospects. And today we are going to be reviewing Tyson's top 10 prospects on the Philadelphia Flyers. Tyson, your article on the NHL League and Division rankings just came out. How do you expect the Flyers to perform this season?
Well, I currently have them ranked as the 4th team in the Metro Division, and I have them behind Washington, Carolina, and I know Flyers fans are going to love this, but Pittsburgh. But I have them as a bubble team. So in other words, in the overall rankings in the Eastern Conference, I have them at 14. So I think that they are a bubble playoff team, but I think they are ahead of a lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference, even though they have increased. So I think they're going to be a bubble team. They are going to get some push, though. I have the New Jersey Devils on the outside looking in, and they added a lot of pieces this summer and are going to be a really high competition. And then the New York Islanders as well are basically bringing back the same team from last year with the same coach, Barry Trotz, one of the best coaches in the league. So I think those are going to be the 2 biggest competition for that bubble spot and in the Metro to get, and also for wild cards. So, but I think that they're going to make it. I have them as a playoff team.
We know Claude Giroux. We know Couturier. We know what they're going to do this year. Who is the next player on the Philadelphia Flyers most likely to have a breakout year and take his game to the next level?
Well, I have 2 that I immediately come to mind. The first one fans are going to be more familiar with, and that's Travis Konecny. He has shown at the junior level when he was in the OHL a high level of offensive upside, not just the game that Flyers fans have come to love Konecny for, as in he'll show flashes of brilliance, but then he'll take somebody out or mess with people, which makes him such a loved player. But I think he has another level of offense to his game as well, and so I think the way that the lineup is shaking out, and he's on the top line right now, and even if they decide to move some pieces around, he's always going to be playing with a highly skilled center, which hasn't always been the case. So I think that he could have a really good season this year and be a breakout candidate. The other one would be Oscar Lindblom, who played some games last year as a rookie. He absolutely destroyed the Swedish league 2 years ago. And so he got in. So a lot of people thought last year he'd make the Flyers right from the beginning. He didn't, got called up, played some games later, but he's another guy that has shown in the past that he has offensive upside. And so I think Flyers fans will be surprised to see him put up more points than you can imagine. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he gets 20 goals this year.
There will surely be a lot of shuffling on the lines this year for the Fly Guys, but I'd like to get your quick thoughts on some projected lines for the Philadelphia Flyers right now. First up, we have the forwards. We have Claude Giroux, we have Couturier, we have Konecny. That's the first line. What should we expect from the first line of the Flyers?
I think you can expect what we always have gotten from that Giroux-Couturier combo is basically the ability to just dominate a game and be that line that leads the team offensively. I think you're going to see the same thing. I really like Konecny on there. It gives the other 2 guys a little bit more ability to play on the perimeter a little bit more, and Konecny has no problem going in the corners and digging out loose pucks. So I think that he's going to help out that line quite a bit. So I think we're going to see potentially even more offense than if Voracek was on there.
The second line, I have JVR, Kevin Hayes, and Voracek. What should we know about the Flyers' second lineman?
We should know, and I think that Flyers fans have seen this so far, that Hayes brings a whole other level of depth to this lineup and to this line. So I kind of want to nickname it the slow line in JVR, because neither Hayes or Voracek at this stage in their career are very fast. But the way that Hayes plays is that he's really good at slowing down the game when he needs to, and using his size to create space for himself. And JVR is amazing down low around the net. So this is a line built for dominating on a cycle game down low around the net. So I think we're going to see the same thing. It's an excellent secondary scoring line. Both JVR and Hayes could score 30 goals. So there's definite potential there as well.
Third line, I got Lindblom, Loughton, and Tornsky. What can we expect from this group, dude?
Probably like a little bit of secondary offense. I think realistically speaking, this might more end up being the fourth line once Nolan Patrick comes back from injury, and Pitlick as well. Loughton has been considered their fourth line center. Karinsky is the surprise, one of the surprises of training camp. Kind of projects as more of a fourth line guy, but if anything, we're going to see a high level of forechecking tenacity from this group. That's the exact game that Loughton and Tornitzky play. They just love to go in the corners and bang and crash and kind of create chaos that way. But they also have some skill, especially Loughton. He put up good numbers last year. I think he could increase as well. And we can expect Lindblom to probably provide the most offense that group and use his position from the wing to create some space for himself and others and have the ability to put up some points.
Last up for the forwards, we have Raffle, Bunneman, and basically anyone else rotating in for the Flyers. What should we expect about that fourth line?
Well, I think we should know that there's not going to be a whole lot of offense here. This is a very clearly defensive-minded group. Raffle has never been a point producer. He's been on the Flyers for a minute now, and that's just not his game, but he's really good defensively, so I think you can expect more of the same. Bunneman, as I said before, like the big surprise at training camp, I honestly am not sure what to expect entirely out of him. Like he looks good in some of the preseason games where he showed a little bit of offensive flair, but I think he's going to play a similar fourth line role where he's just going to be a guy relied on to use his size and energy to kind of help change momentum and not play a whole lot. So it's interesting. They started with 7 defense this year, so one of the other forwards will kind of fill in there as we go. But yeah, that's how they're shaking out to begin with until we get some of these injured guys back.
All right, let's talk about defense. We got to start with Provy and Sanheim. What do you like about this pairing?
I love the potential of that pairing. I was a little bit worried that they would stick with Niskanen up there, and I'm not necessarily a huge Niskanen fan, just because over the last couple of years, his underlying numbers, his possession numbers, show he usually drags down his defensive partner, especially in his own zone. And so there was talk of putting him with Provorov since he is a veteran, and one can hope that those numbers would increase. But with Sanheim, he is very, very good at maintaining and keeping possession. When you watch him play, especially on the right side, he has no problem carrying the puck in the offensive zone. And so you have this two-headed monster, so to speak, with puck ability where both guys can play off of each other, can make long passes across to each other east-west, which is kind of unheard of. And they also both have the ability to really contribute to puck possession as a working pair on the offensive zone. So it's a pretty awesome pairing, I think. I think it's probably the best of these groupings by far.
Next up, we have Ghost and Braun. What can we expect from this duo, man?
Similar to Niskanen, Braun has the last year or two kind of struggled a little bit in dragging down players that he's played with. But I think in the case of him and Gostisbehere, if I'm going not just by numbers but by experience, like as we know with Ghost, he's one of the most entertaining defensemen in the NHL. And Braun is like kind of the opposite of that. So he plays a very simple game. He's not flashy at all. Tries to take care of things in the defensive zone. So I think that he's going to be good for Ghost because, as we know, his knock has been just skate everywhere, kind of act like he's another forward, do his thing, and then completely miss his defensive coverage like the rest of the game. So I think with Braun, he's going to have an opportunity to learn from someone who's basically made an entire career surrounding a defensive game. But also he can actually float and have the ability to float now, kind of guilt-free, knowing the guy back there is going to be communicating to him, talking to him, and also be able to cover for him. So I think we're going to see Ghost maybe play a little bit more than he has in the last couple of years under Hackstall, just because I think the Vigneault trusts Braun a lot. So you're going to see a good combination of offense and defense from that pair, I believe.
Last up on the defense, we have Haag and Niskanen. What can you tell me about this duo?
Oh boy, that's what I can tell you about that pairing. And there's a lot of people that thought maybe Haag wouldn't make it this year, but he did. And Niskanen, I think he's a player that's riding on reputation at this point in his career. I think it was only 3 years ago on the Caps that he was absolutely incredible on a playoff run. He's been a really good defenseman in the NHL for a long time, and maybe he can turn his game back around this year. Maybe it's not a regression. It just is kind of hard at his age. I believe he's 32, 33. To suddenly like gain form back that you had when you were like 30. But you never know. Sometimes playing on a younger team can help with that a little bit. But man, I have a hard time not thinking that this pair is going to get hemmed in a lot in their own zone. Especially Haag just is a little slow, both with skating and also just moving the puck up the ice quickly. And so I think this pair is definitely going to be the toughest of the three when it comes to, I think they're going to have bad possession numbers with this pair on the ice. And one can hope that they figure it out or they decide to move some bodies in and around. But I think that's going to probably be the most frustrating pair if they stick that way for the Flyers fans this year.
At goalie, we have Carter Hart as the starter. No brainer there. How much patience should Flyers fans have for Carter Hart this year, man?
A lot. Like a very high amount. I think I said before with this the fact that he was the first since Carey Price to start at age 20, and Carey Price turned 31 this year, so that's 11 years ago. Goalies don't do this. I think Columbus brought in a rookie this year to potentially start. His name's awesome. His name is Elvis Merzlikins. And people just call him Elvis because I probably butchered his last name. But he's 25, and he's going to start as a rookie at 25. That's 5 years more experience than Carter Hart before he potentially is getting a starting gig as a rookie. So it's just unheard of. So I think for him, so much of the goaltending position is confidence. And as much as it is form, it's very much confidence. Like I think Hart has said in past interviews that he's had a sports psychiatrist for, I think, since he was like 12 or 13. So like there's just so much that goes into that position, and so much of it is mental because you are relied on so heavily, but there's long periods of time where maybe you don't get a shot, or and yet one shot that you miss can absolutely turn the tides of a game. So I would just say like patience is going to be the number one with him. So he might go in these stretches where he is absolutely dominant and looks like the best goalie we've ever seen. And he might go in a long stretch where he's letting in 3-4 goals a night. That's not uncommon in the NHL for any goalie right now, let alone a 21-year-old. So I would just say, a long leash for him would be best, because I do think that he's going to be what Flyers fans hope he will be. It just may not be this year as his top potential.
Lastly, backing up Carter Hart is Brian Elliott. Any quick thoughts on Brian Elliott this year?
You guys already know what you're getting with him. But the good thing is that you're not relying on him finally to be your starter. So if he gets hurt right away, it is what it is. And that's kind of a nice feeling.
All right, let's get this thing started. We are now going to review Tyson's top 10 Philadelphia Flyers. Please check out our previous pods. This is the part 3 of our 3-part series. In our first 2 parts, we did prospects 21 through 30. Then we did 11 to 20. Right now, let's get into the top 10. All right, number 10 comes in at Samuel Ersson, 6'2", 19-year-old goalie prospect from Sweden. He was a round 5 prospect in the 2018 NHL draft. Tyson, what should all Flyers fans know about Samuel Ersson?
He is a another in a long list of this category I call intriguing. So he was this fifth round pick in 2018, and so obviously they saw something there in him. And the crazy thing about him is that he very quickly turned from this sort of prospect that you're like, oh, well, he's kind of considered an average, below average goalie prospect to, oh, wait a minute, he's playing one level below Sweden's top league and he's a starter as an 18-year-old. Interesting. And then last year, he absolutely dominated that league. I believe won a championship. He had a .933 save percentage, which for someone of his age was absolutely unheard of. And so this year they bumped him up. A team decided he was ready to play in the top Swedish league. That's been a little bit of a difficult transition for him. He's played 2 games so far. They start a little earlier than teams in North America do. And his save percentage and goals against average are pretty bad. But time will tell with him. I think that the fact that he put up those numbers already shows that he has technical abilities, and we could see him in a Phantoms jersey as early as next year. That wouldn't surprise me depending on how this year goes. But I think what you can kind of expect from him this year is I would hope that we see him hit around the 20-game mark for goalie starts. That's pretty good for a teenager in the Swedish league, and hopefully seeing his save percentage get closer to a 9-10 would be a really good progress for him in this high-level Swedish league.
Coming in at number 9, we have Tanner Lazinski, 6'1", 22-year-old forward who plays for Ohio State University. He was a round 6 pick in the 2016 NHL draft. Tyson, what should we know about Tanner Lazinski this season?
And I love this guy. He is so much like players that Flyers fans fall in love with. He's a really strong two-way guy. He's super tenacious on the forecheck, and yet he still has a little bit of skill to his game as well. So the first time he really caught my eye was in the 2017 World Junior Championships playing for the U.S., and he didn't put up great numbers. He was actually kind of a surprise on that team as an extra forward and someone you wouldn't expect to really play, but every single time he was on the ice, something happened, offensively or through a hit. And he has a really good sense of on-ice awareness of his surroundings. He's always aware of where the puck is. He's put up really good numbers at Ohio State. And so he just has this tenacious two-way game that's easy to fall in love with. He's interesting because he did go back for his senior year. And so basically what that means is if he decides he doesn't want to sign with the Flyers, he can wait this entire year, play his senior year, not sign, and then August 1st, he would become a free agent and could sign with any NHL team. It's a little weird nuance with NCAA players in the current collective bargaining agreement. But I do believe that he has interest of playing for the Flyers. I think that it's a situation where Ohio State has an opportunity to be a good team this year, which has not always been the norm. He just made the Big Ten's list of it's kind of like a players to watch list. They make a list of players they think are going to potentially be All-Americans from the conference, and so they listed him already, and a prospect we talked about last week, Kalanick on Wisconsin, as well as players in that list. So he's a solid prospect. Flyers got crazy value out of him. So 6th rounder in 2016, second to last round, and we could see him in the NHL later this year, honestly, if he signs by the end of the year.
Coming in at number 8, we have Wade Allison, 6'2", 21-year-old right winger from Canada. Wade Allison was the 52nd overall pick in round 2 of the 2016 NHL draft. What should we know about Wade Allison in 2019, man?
He has been affectionately named a poor man's Scotty Hartnell. So you guys know Scotty Hartnell, obviously, very well. And fan favorite, beloved player. And he plays a very similar style to Scotty Hartnell. So he is similar to Hartnell in that he's tenacious. He works really well down low around the net in the cycle game. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of injury issues over the last few years. So he tore his ACL at some point, and last year, I believe, and he talked this summer about just rehabbing and the difficulties of that and not feeling 100% yet. And so for him, that has been kind of an ongoing. But the thought is that if he can get all that together, he could easily be a third-line player very, very quickly in the NHL because he's big, he's strong, but not only that, like he just plays a strong possession game and he makes those around him better. He also has a super fun personality. Like he'll drop one-liners constantly with the media and rookie camps and other places. So he's a fun guy, and he does remind a lot of people of Scotty Hartnell.
Number 7, 6'6", 20-year-old left winger from Canada. He is Isaac Ratcliffe. He was the 35th overall selection in the second round of the 2017 NHL draft. Isaac Ratcliffe was recently cut from the Flyers training camp roster and was sent to Lehigh Valley. What should Flyers fans expect from Isaac Ratcliffe this season?
Well, they'll notice him right away if they ever try to watch any Lehigh games, because he usually stands at least like seemingly ahead above everybody else at 6'6". But what's crazy about Ratcliffe is not only is he 6'6", but he's a highly skilled player simultaneously. So sometimes with these big guys, they'll get drafted because they're big and they are decent skaters, and the hope is kind of, hopefully they can kind of get their coordination together, things like that. Usually bigger guys in the NHL aren't as coordinated unless your name is Chara. So that's more of a rarity than a norm. And so for Ratcliffe, he has progressed really well in line of skill, and you'll watch him make these moves on guys one-on-one that smaller players can make. And so he'll kind of barrel down on defenders a lot, and he'll intimidate them because of how big he is. And he'll do this toe drag move or kind of put the puck between their skates and try to force them to make a decision. And guys don't want to hit him because they're not sure they can knock him over. So they won't do that. And then he'll just either plow through him or go around him. So I think more than anything, it's just whether or not he can transition that game that he used so well in junior into the AHL next year. That'll be the thing. His draft year, 2017, he was ranked as a first rounder to start the year. And then he dropped to the second because there was some concerns about his skating, and there was some concerns that he was going to maybe have a hard time taking the game that he played at the junior level to the next pro level. I don't necessarily have that same worry. He scored 50 goals last year in the OHL, looked extremely dominant, but I think it might take him a year or two to transition. But he'll be a guy you'll watch on Lehigh. I think he could play second, third line minutes this year. He'll be fun to watch.
Coming in at number 6, we have German Rubstov, 6 foot, 21-year-old center from Russia. He was the 22nd pick in the first round of the 2016 NHL draft. Rubstov was just sent to Lehigh Valley just a few days ago. What can we expect from German Rubstov this season?
Man, I hope for him, I hope that we can expect at least a 40-point, 50-point season if he's down in Lehigh the whole time. He got injured really badly last year, had some crazy knee injury. He only played 14 games in his first year playing pro in the AHL. But he was drafted as a skill guy. So I remember his draft year, 2016. He wasn't a surprise where he was taken, but there was this kind of uncertainty surrounding him. He was playing in Russia. It was, okay, what kind of player is he? He looks highly skilled in international tournaments, but what is he going to look like if he comes over to North America? And he came over early, played in the Quebec League here, and did not put up great numbers, even though at times he had some pretty good line mates. And so there's definitely this aspect of, okay, who is he? And we're kind of still asking that same question. We see the skill set with him. We see excellent vision. He's got excellent puck handling skills. He has really good on-ice awareness, plays a decent two-way game. But the issue with him is going to be this year, can he actually put up points? And so if he can put up, like what I hope, at least 40 points, he might show himself to be a second and third line player, not just a depth piece on the roster. And so I think that's the hope. I think we could see him in some Flyers games this year if there's more injuries. They took a long, hard look at him. Vigneault looked at him pretty hard, but because of the injury last year, I think he wanted him to get some more AHL reps. But don't be surprised to see him later in the year.
All right, so it took us 3 weeks, but we're finally here. We're into the top 5 prospects. Coming in at number 5, we have Phil Myers, 6'5", 22-year-old defenseman from Canada. I thought this guy was a lock to make the Flyers roster this year. I guess I was wrong. But Phil Myers was sent to Lehigh Valley a few days ago. What should we expect to see from Phil Myers in 2019?
Man, I hope... here's my hope first. I hope that he's not discouraged, because one of the reasons why I think he was sent down was more because of waivers than anything else. And in the NHL, if you are on your entry-level contract and he's in his third year on his entry-level contract, you do not require waivers to be sent to the minors. But Sam Morin, who is the Flyers' kind of seventh defenseman right now, would have required waivers to be sent down. So sometimes these things are paper transactions. I think you'll see him in a Flyers jersey. Man, I think for him, what we want to see is improvement in defensive zone awareness. So he's an offensive-minded defenseman. I mean, when the Flyers nabbed him as a free agent, he wasn't even drafted. He didn't get drafted his draft year because there was so many questions about his defensive game. Like, he would just kind of fly up the middle of the ice sometimes and just look like another center. And you'd be like, oh, what position does this guy play? And over time, he's kind of learned a little bit better overall the defensive position. And with his height and weight, like, he is noticeable whenever he's on the ice. So the issue is more he just loses guys in the defensive zone, and in neutral ice, sometimes guys will kind of catch him on his blind side. He'll kind of lose track of where things are, and sometimes he tries to do too much with the puck. He'll try to just shoot it right up the middle, and it'll get intercepted, or rather than make an easy play like passing it to the closest winger to himself, he'll try to go for this home run play. And you like to see that at times, but I think for him this year, what I want to see is I want him to see the demotion as not that. In other words, not just an opportunity for him to go back and do the same thing over, but to go back and absolutely dominate. I think he could be a point-per-game player at the American League level, and I think he could make Lehigh be one of the top teams in the AHL this year. And I think that if he goes in with that attitude and thinks about working on his defensive game, then that's going to pop him right back in the Flyers lineup sooner rather than later.
Coming in at number 4, we have Bobby Brink, 5'8", 18-year-old right winger from Minnesota. Bobby Brink was the 34th overall selection in the second round of the 2019 NHL draft. He was the 2018-19 USHL Forward of the Year for Denver last year. What should we expect from Bobby this season, man?
Man, I actually think this might be a little bit of a tougher year for him at playing at the University of Denver, believe it or not. I absolutely love this player, though. So he dropped to the second round. So a lot of guys had him in the first, but we kind of all figured he'd end up in the second because he's a wonky skater, to put it nicely. So he does not have your stereotypical skating stride, and he's really small. He's only 5'8". So you watch him sometimes and you're like, oh my gosh, like this guy has a weird skating stride and he's only 5'8". That's probably not good. But then you look at the stat line, and then you look like what he's able to do. I mean, there'd just be times when it seemed like he'd hold on to the puck for a whole shift, just absolutely dominate a shift. Like, always seems to know where everyone is on the ice. He uses his speed and he uses his edge as well to kind of cut in and out and create space for himself. But he is what I would call a long-term project player. So I don't think this year he's going to dominate at the University of Denver. He might put up okay numbers, like 25 points, maybe 30. But he's a guy that we might look at come his sophomore, junior year at Denver and go, oh yeah, this guy is absolute stud. And he might project more as a winger at the NHL level. But I think if you get a chance, Flyers fans, like, he just shows these fun flashes of brilliance. So if you ever randomly see on ESPN, I don't know, 4 or college, if there's a Denver game on, take a look. He's fun to watch. He's an entertaining player for sure.
Coming in at number 3, we have Mr. Cam York, a 5'11", 8-year-old defenseman from California. York was the 14th pick in the first round of last year's NHL draft. From what I've read, his passing, his vision, his shot across the board are at an elite level. What should we be expecting to see from Cam York this year?
Yeah, I think they can expect him to dominate at Michigan this year. Michigan has a pretty good team heading into this year. It's been a few years before they've been this good, and York is the stereotypical modern defenseman. He's under 6 feet. He's very, very quick. He has elite vision. Really good ability to move the puck up quickly to forwards. He ran the power play last year for the U.S. National Development Program. He set a points record at the defense position there, playing on probably the deepest team that they've ever had in that program. But a big part of that is because of him. So I think that what we can expect from him is I think he could be a point per game defenseman or end up with at least 30 points playing for Michigan. He'll probably play for the U.S. at the World Junior Championship in December and will be a standout guy. So he's a quick puck mover. You notice him whenever he's on the ice, and so I think you can expect more of the same from this year. And I think he's probably he's obviously going to play this year in Michigan unless he has an insane year. I think he probably plays at least one more before he signs with the Flyers. So he's a longer term guy as well.
Tyson's number 2 prospect on the Philadelphia Flyers goes to Morgan Frost. 5'11", 20-year-old center from Canada. Morgan Frost was the 27th overall pick in the first round of the 2017 NHL draft. It looks like a groin injury kept him from making the Flyers roster. He's just so close from making it. But what do you expect to see from Morgan Frost this year, Tyson?
I expect him to take the Claude Giroux route to the NHL. So I think if you remember, it's been a long time, I guess, since Giroux is a rookie, but I believe he started his first year in the AHL as well, and then got called up fairly early on and then never got sent back. And so I could see the same out of Frost. For some reason with NHL coaches, with a rookie, if there's an injury in camp and it pulls them out of preseason games and out of practices, they in general send them down. And so as soon as I saw Frost was out for a couple of days, I'm like, he's getting sent down. And sure enough, he was. But he was arguably the best player in the OHL last year. He had 109 points in 58 games. He played for Canada at the World Junior Championship, and Canada was super disappointing, but he was dominant. He had 8 points in 5 games. So when he was actually drafted, a lot of people were shocked that the Flyers took him where they did. Most people had him ranked as a second or third rounder. But and so any scouting report that I could find with him at the time would say that he projected as a defensive center, and yet we're looking at him now and we're saying, no, he's a high-flying offensive center. So, but I think because at times people thought maybe he would project as a more defensive-minded center, might actually work in his favor because Alain Vigneault, the Flyers coach, likes guys that play a more two-way game. And so I think Frost could potentially do that, though at this point in his career, he's definitely way more offensive-minded and almost to a detriment because he's learned how skilled he is. But it also wouldn't surprise me to see him playing on the wing more than center if the Flyers decide they need some flexibility. My ideal lineup has him slotted in the Flyers on the third line as a winger. So I think we'll see him in a Flyers jersey at some point this year as well. And it wouldn't surprise me that if he gets called up, he doesn't get sent back down to Lehigh either.
Tyson's number 1 prospect on the Philadelphia Flyers goes to Joel Farabee. 6 foot, 19-year-old left winger from New York. He was a 14th overall pick in the 2018 NHL draft. He was recently sent to Lehigh Valley to play for the Phantoms. What do you want to see from Joel Farabee this season?
I want to see him be point per game in Lehigh until he gets called up. Last year he played for Boston University and had a little bit of a rough start, but then absolutely killed it at the end and then signed a pro contract. And we all thought he made the Flyers just based on how they were talking and even playing in those last preseason games over in Europe. But they decided to send him back. Whether that's just a paper transaction to kind of help with cap space or not, I'm not sure yet. It's kind of unknown. So we might see him play sooner rather than later as well. But if he's in Lehigh, just produce. I mean, he's got a tremendous skill set. He can absolutely dominate and drive play from the wing. He uses his teammates well to his advantage. I thought he was going to be more of a goal scorer than a playmaker, but he's showing that he has the ability to do both at the pro level. And so I think more than anything, it's just have a smooth transition here. He's only 19. 19-year-olds don't play a whole lot in the AHL. So if he looks dominant at all and continues to work on all aspects of his game, I think that'll be a huge plus. And I do think we will see him in a Flyers jersey as well. There's just so many options with these prospects for Alain Vigneault. I feel like I've said with 4 or 5 guys on this whole list, we can see them in a Flyers jersey this year. And that's not the norm to see that many. So there's lots of options here. It's a pretty awesome list. It's one of the deepest lists, if not the deepest overall list in the league. So Flyers fans have an absolute ton to be excited for, both for this season and the seasons to come.
All right. Thank you so much, Tyson, for hopping onto the Blue Root Pod and giving us your top 30 prospects, man. We'll definitely be having you on, hopefully weekly, to give us all the updates on all these guys. The Flyers have a ton of prospects down in Lehigh and beyond. Make sure you follow Tyson on Twitter at Quibell Tyson and check out all of his extensive writings on the NHL and the Flyers. Those can be found on thepaintedlions.com. For Chris, myself, for Tyson, thanks for listening, guys. Go Flyers!